Welcome to the Daf Show. Today I have a phenomenal guest with me, Tina Anderson of Just Thrive. Tina Anderson's journey into the world of health had a unique start and some unusual turns. She began her career as a trial lawyer who specialized in settling cases by bringing both sides together, a personal passion of hers. Once her second child arrived, Tina left the high stress job behind so she could focus on her family. Luckily, she was still able to use her considerable legal skills to point her career in a direction as the in-house counsel for a family pharmaceutical company. But what Tina saw that made her change her direction again, she was frustrated by the many abuses in the pharmaceutical industry. Tina turned towards the field of natural health and found her life's work. She channeled her energy into learning all she could about disease prevention and good health maintenance. This led her to discover the importance of gut health and how connected and crucial it is for overall health and wellness. To share her discovery with the world, Tina, along with her husband, created a unique supplement that contains the superior probiotic strains of renowned researcher Dr. Simon Cutting. By promoting gut health and probiotics, Tina shares her passion for wellness, helping others live their best physical and emotional lives. So welcome, Tina. What a remarkable bio that you have. That's amazing.
Thank you, Dr. Daf. I'm so excited to be here with you today.
Thank you. So tell us a little bit about your journey. You started off as a lawyer, and what sort of got you thinking about going into this field?
It is a kind of an interesting journey. I started out, as you said, in the legal profession, and I'm still an attorney, so I'm still a licensed practicing attorney, but I was in litigation and working crazy hours and started to have a family and just decided that it was not the lifestyle I wanted to lead. And I wasn't really fulfilled in it either. It was, I would do emotion and nobody seemed to care. It was like the insurance company. It just wasn't fulfilling. And so I was able to go into a family pharmaceutical business where I was able to work much more normal hours, much more flexible hours. And that was great. And I loved it. I was thinking, I'm in this world that's like delivering life-saving medications and I'm a part of something really great. But then after being in the pharmaceutical industry for a while, my husband and I both started to see a lot of the abuses in the industry. He was also in the industry. And so we started seeing the overprescribing of medications, the never a concern about prevention or maintaining your health. It was always about treating symptoms. And it just wasn't a model that we really followed. We saw it a lot with our relatives too. We'd see one relative that would have maybe stomach issues, and then she would start on medication for that. And then she'd start having a rash because of the pharmaceutical she was on. And then she would start having joint pain for that medicine that was treating the rash. And it was like this domino effect. And she was really never getting better and only getting worse. And so, of course, there is a place for pharmaceuticals, especially in emergency type medicine situations, for acute situations. But when you're talking about a chronic issue, I'm just of the opinion that we get to the root cause of it. What is the root cause of a problem? And it was the way we led our lives with our children. We have 3 kids and they would get a fever and I would kind of let them run their fever for a little bit. And, of course, if it got dangerously high, I wouldn't mess around with it then. But a fever is our body's way to naturally fight off an infection. And so we want to embrace our natural healing abilities because our body is beautifully designed to actually heal itself. And it's important that we remember that instead of always trying to stop our fever right away the minute we have a little bit of one. And so we just decided that we wanted to go into the field of natural health because that was the way we were already living our lives. And so through a lot of prayer, meditation, being at the right place at the right time, we were able to license these incredible strains that were different than anything that was on the market. And we licensed them from London University, from the renowned researcher, Dr. Simon Cutting, like you had mentioned. And we were able to bring this product to market. And it has been the most gratifying career journey I have ever been on. It has been so awesome to really make true change in people's lives and, bring a product to market that where, side effects include better mood, better sleep, instead of, the pharmaceutical is like suicidal thoughts and, horrible rashes or whatever it might be. Here we're bringing a product to market that maybe somebody came to for gut issues or like digestive issues, but all of a sudden they start noticing they're managing their weight a little bit better or they're sleeping better. I mean, it's amazing when you start to take care of your gut when everything else starts to fall into place. So it's just been a really fun, amazing journey, but really hard too. I mean, it's been hard, but now I can look back and be like, it was really fun.
Yes, being a business owner is hard, but that's
Yeah.
so powerful. And I'm one of those people who I really don't like taking medication. So typically, even if I get a headache, my
Me-
husband is like, just take some Tylenol or take some Advil. And I'm like, no, I'm not taking anything. I'll let it just run its course or drink some water. I just don't necessarily always trust medicine. But I will tell you, there was a point in time, I just had a baby 9 months ago. And during the pregnancy, I had a lot of stomach issues and just with the baby, like pressing on things. And it got to the point where I was in severe pain. And one of my friends said, why don't you take some probiotics? And at that time, I had never really heard or understood what that actually meant. And so I went ahead and took it, and everything stopped. It was just, I was thanking God for her because
Yeah.
I don't know what made her recommend that, but it cured whatever was going on in my body.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people don't know what probiotics actually do for you. And a lot of doctors don't like actually bring it up on their own. If you ask them, they're like, oh, sure, take it. But they don't recommend that
Mhm.
on
Yeah.
their own, which is really interesting.
Yeah, it's so funny because my dad's doctor actually said to him, I don't know if it's good for you to take these supplements, but because I was never educated on it, and that's where the core problem lies is that medical schools are funded by pharmaceutical companies. I mean, doctors are, they have pharmaceutical reps in their office all the time because they have the, means to be able to educate doctors and, have the staff to do that. And that is really where the problem lies. They will say, oh yeah, you could take it. It's not going to hurt you, but they don't realize how it could help you. And they tell patients, oh, take a multivitamin or take vitamin D and vitamin C.
Right.
And all of those are great. But if your gut is inflamed and your gut is not healthy, it's not even absorbing those nutrients. And that's what's so exciting about the world of the microbiome and the gut and our gut is that, our gut is responsible for virtually all aspects of our overall health. It is literally the epicenter for our health and wellness from not just our digestive issues. Most people think, oh, gas, bloating, diarrhea, constipation. Oh, maybe I need a probiotic. Or in your case, I'm having some stomach issues. I need a probiotic. And those are absolutely times where you want to go to a probiotic. But there are so many other reasons why you want to look at a probiotic, from mental health, mood disorders. Our brain health is directly connected to our gut health. 90% of our serotonin is produced in our gut. GABA, which is our calming hormone, is produced in our gut. Dopamine is produced in our gut. When people have allergies, eczema, autoimmune issues, things like skin rashes, those are all directly related to the unhealth of our gut. And we know even the heart disease and diabetes, Alzheimer's, there was a study that came out that this toxin that is derived from the gut, if there's an increase of this LPS toxin that goes into your bloodstream, that's the number one driver for Alzheimer's. I mean, who would have thought that, the same cause of constipation is the same cause of, Alzheimer's? It's absolutely actually exciting that we know that the gut is responsible for our health, but it's also, there's a lot of education that needs to go out about it. And we need to let people know that the gut is really dictating our overall health. 70 to 80% of our immune system is found in our gut. So here we are taking all these vitamin D, vitamin C, which again, I think are very important nutrients. But if our gut is inflamed, it's not absorbing those nutrients. And if our gut is actually not healthy, it doesn't even send the signals to our immune cells. So it's our gut microbiome that is sending signals to our immune cells, our natural killer cells, our dendritic cells, all these really important immune cells to actually help our immune system fight something when we have it. So I always feel that it's foundational to start with our gut. And, there's lots of different things to do besides a probiotic. A probiotic is a really important mechanism to it, but we do know that there's, other therapies out there as well. But the other thing which is kind of scary, we now know the studies are telling us that our gut is responsible for all these areas of our health. The bad news is that we live in this world that is so antibacterial. We are 10 times more bacteria than we are human. And that's really hard for people to grasp. Our body is made up 10 times more of bacterial cells than human cells. And most of those bacterial cells that are living in and on us are actually friendly bacteria. Less than 1% of bacteria is bad. I always say like bacteria needs a PR campaign because, it's like they have such a bad rap. And yet we've got so much good and friendly bacteria that we need to support and nurture. And unfortunately, we're not always doing that. We live in this world that's so offensive to our bacteria. Like I said, bacterial hand sanitizers, bacterial soaps are out there. We know households that have cleaning products that say kills 99.99% of the bacteria. Actually, there was a study that showed that households that use those types of cleaners actually have children with a higher incidence of allergies and autoimmune issues. So we're killing off the bacteria that is really important for our well-being. We know antibiotics are really offensive to our gut health. So not only do we take antibiotics that kill off like the good bacteria, but in our food supply, we have antibiotics that are put in our meat products. So we're on this daily onset. Stress is a huge, huge offender to our gut health. And we think, why would stress have anything to do with our gut health? But, think about that gut-brain connection. When you have butterflies in your stomach, you're excited about something, your mind is telling you, and then all of a sudden you have a physical feeling in your stomach. That's because there is something called the gut-brain axis, and they're talking back and forth to each other. But the opposite is true. So if you have stressful feelings, then all of a sudden now your gut is, getting harmed because it's sending bad signals down to your gut. So it's really important that we help our lifestyle to try to improve our gut. The foods that we, processed foods, all those types of things, very offensive to our gut health. And unfortunately, that's the world we're living in. But there is good news. There is good news because there are solutions.
It's interesting that you mentioned about the good bacteria versus like the bad bacteria, because now that you're talking about this, I remember what caused me to have those severe stomach pains when I was pregnant. I was taking some antibiotics that were prescribed to me because I had a kidney stone during my pregnancy, which was horrific. And I couldn't take any pain medication because of the baby. So I had to just kind of go through it naturally. But I was to take antibiotics. However, after taking the antibiotics, I was even more pain because I needed, which I didn't realize, probiotics while I was taking the antibiotics in order to balance out, because like you were saying, it got rid of the good bacteria too. And unfortunately, I didn't know that. And I think it's so important for people to realize that, especially if they're going to take antibiotics, they really do need to balance that out with probiotics too.
Absolutely. That is such a good point that you brought up, because antibiotics are literally killing off the bad bacteria, but they're killing off our good bacteria. And it is our good bacteria that allows us to function and nurtures the rest of our overall health. And you had that effect because you were actually taking an antibiotic, but those antibiotics are found in our meat products all throughout, when we're going to the grocery store. So it's important to try to avoid those types of meats too that have antibiotics in them, because that gets passed on to you. The really neat thing about our particular probiotic strains is that we did a study. We're very research-based. We've done double-blind human clinical trials, which is unheard of in the supplement space, let alone the probiotic space. But we actually did a study with patients who are on some of the strongest antibiotics out there, liver encephalitis patients, and they started taking these strains that are found in our product and found our strains survive the presence of an antibiotic. Most probiotics would actually die in the presence of an antibiotic. Our strains actually survive in the presence of an antibiotic and work, cohesively with the antibiotic. So, but it's also important if you take an antibiotic that you're on it, you stay on it for at least a couple months afterwards, because you need to rebuild that gut population. Because there were several studies on certain antibiotics that you take that it wreaked havoc on your gut. Those antibiotics actually wreaked havoc on your gut for up to a 2-year period. So it's really important that you're rebuilding that gut bacteria and supporting it to help bring it back to life. And one of the analogies I love to use just to make people understand it better is if you envision a garden and that garden has been stepped on and trampled on and there's weeds growing all over that garden, then you compare that to your gut. It's the same thing. You've got the pathogenic bacteria or the bad bacteria, and you have the beneficial bacteria. So the beneficial bacteria are the nice plants, and then the pathogenic bacteria are the weeds in the garden. So the strains in our product, what's so unique about them is they go into that garden. They have the ability to get rid of the weeds in the garden, and then they have the ability to bring those plants that have been stepped on and trampled on back to life. Whereas the majority of probiotics on the market, and probably one that's similar to what you took, it may have planted a seed here or there, but it's not going in and making a true change to that garden. So maybe people might see some temporary relief, similar to like you would feel with a pharmaceutical, but this is going in and making a true change to your gut microbiome.
Wow. So it's different than, when you're in the stores and you see things like kombucha and things that say that they have these bacteria in it.
Yeah.
Would you say that there are products out there that are stronger versus like products that, let's say someone didn't want to take medication, they didn't want to take the pills. What would you recommend then in that case? Are those
Yeah.
drinks
So
like false advertising or?
it's not that it's false advertising. Basically, we have all this new knowledge coming out. The Human Microbiome Project, launched by the National Institutes of Health about 12 years ago, started telling us more about the gut than we ever knew before. And we are just starting to really understand what the gut is responsible for. It's so exciting. I think there's going to be a time where we're taking 20 different types of probiotics, because we know that probiotics are so supportive and so many different types have different functions. But what's cool about the spores, the ones that are based in our product, is they're going in and actually, like I said, changing that gardener. We're the gardener of the gut. What has been out there for the last however many years, 20, 30, 40 years, is they're taking that garden and they're planting a plant in there, maybe one or two plants. So it looks a little bit nicer, but they're not doing anything with the weeds. They're not doing anything with those plants that have been stepped on and trampled on. So these strains in our product and Just Thrive actually have the ability to attach to the intestinal cell wall. They have the ability to bring those beneficial bacteria, maybe help it thrive a little bit more in our gut. So it's a very different approach to gut health. And I think now there's new science out there. And now these other probiotic strains, I think, are just I think now we know they're not surviving. We know that the other probiotic strains aren't even getting to the intestines alive. We have done multiple studies, a gastric survivability study showing that most of these probiotics are dying by the time they get to the intestines. And that's the problem. We need, in order to just be defined as a probiotic, it needs to arrive alive in the intestines. But things like kombucha, sauerkraut, fermented type of foods, I think are really beneficial to your gut. We know they're very nutrient dense. They just are not a replacement for a probiotic. They don't deliver live bacterial strains. Just like the overwhelming majority of probiotics on the market die when they get to the stomach acid, so too do kombucha, sauerkraut. But the difference is kombucha, sauerkraut, and all of those types of probiotic foods actually have other gut nutrient benefits. So I'm a huge fan of fermented foods and things like that, but I don't look at it as a replacement for a quality probiotic that's actually going in. You see it with people all the time, because you see when people start taking fermented foods, they're not really addressing the problem and not necessarily feeling better. Whereas with our product, you're seeing people have some pretty, good results with the product.
That's great. So when you did the research for Just Thrive, and you were researching that gut-brain connection, did you find that people who maybe dealt with things like anxiety and things of that nature, where they feel it, like you said, in their stomach, that Just Thrive helped with that? Those probiotics even help with that, where maybe a person may think it's anxiety, but it's something maybe with their gut that's, connecting with their brain and causing them to feel something.
Yeah, well, it's really important that we definitely cannot make any claims that it helps with anxiety or depression, because those are drug claims. And as a supplement, you're not allowed to make those claims. What we did do, however, are the double-blind human clinical trials we did do were something called leaky gut. And we know that when you have a leaky gut, it's actually exactly what it sounds like. There's holes in the gut lining. And so toxins from the gut seep into the blood stream and start this inflammatory response. And now people start having this chronic inflammation. And so we know that when you get rid of that inflammation or seal up that leaky gut, which we know that the strains in Just Thrive actually showed a 42% reduction in LPS toxins in the bloodstream. We know you start seeing people with better mood, just sleeping better, feeling calmer, all of those types of things. And again, like I mentioned earlier, 90% of our serotonin is produced in our gut. So many people think of, anxiety and depression stemming from your brain. Really, what the researchers are finding out now is that really it's all stemming from our gut. 90% of our serotonin, which is our happy hormone, is produced in our gut. Dopamine is produced in our gut. GABA, our calming hormone, is produced in our gut. So it's really important. And that's why we do see when people start taking the product for maybe, constipation, they start to realize, oh my God, I'm feeling better. I'm in a better mood.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have another product called our Just Calm product, which is a particular, very highly studied probiotic strain that actually reduces cortisol levels or helps balance your cortisol levels. So like I said, there's going to be a time where we're finding research on all these different types of strains, but we know that the probiotic that we have is literally just foundational for your overall health. And then the particular probiotic strain for our Just Calm product is actually targeting, we call it a psychobiotic, and we don't call it that, but that's what a psychobiotic is. It's a probiotic strain that actually helps support that gut-brain access, so that communication to the brain. And the studies on it are showing that it's actually changing your brainwave activity to put you more in that theta wave, which is like the flow state, kind of that more focused state. So not only are the studies on that product for better mood health and being calmer, and being able to like lower cortisol levels, but it's also on cognitive function. So being able to prepare for an exam better, for example. I have a son in college and I'm like, you need to take this before your exam. So that's what's great about, both of the products that are supporting our gut. Like the probiotic alone, just our Just Thrive probiotic and antioxidant, just alone, you're like 50 to 60% there. Okay. Then you add in the Just Calm, and, you've got something that's really going to help that gap with people who are, having mood issues and dealing with that kind of stuff.
That's great. So I want to talk a little bit about the Just Calm. So you're saying that with that particular product, it also is a probiotic, but it's helping you with a little bit of like the mood issues. What kind of person, because some of these terms like cortisol, the stress hormones, a lot of people maybe don't know these words or these terms. So what kind of person or what lifestyle, maybe a person who might be interested in the Just Calm might live, or what benefits in like the real life every day, like you mentioned your son and the exam, what kind of person would probably want to consider taking Just Calm?
Yeah, somebody who just has difficulty managing their stress. Unfortunately, it's such a relevant topic right now. I mean, we are seeing an epidemic in anxiety, especially in children, which breaks my heart as a mother of 3. I think it's an epidemic, like allergies are an epidemic with children alone. And I think that's a reflection of what's happened to our food supply and because our guts are so inflamed. But I mean, obviously anxiety, depression, mood disorders are just such an epidemic right now. And I feel like a lot of people are just having difficulty managing stress. But those people, I have a friend, I've always been more of like a stressed out person and always worry a lot. And I have a friend I would see, she's pretty calm, and I would hear a fire truck come and I'm like, oh my God, saying a prayer, please don't let that go to, my house, or I'd be freaking out about it. And my friend would be like, oh my God, it's probably just another cat stuck in the tree, and I'm like, that's the difference between people who just manage stress differently. And obviously I've grown tremendously from that time in my life. But I mean, there was a long time in my life that's the way I was. I wasn't able to manage stress the way she was able to manage it. So, obviously people who just live stressful lives, they've got kids, they're running around, they're working from their home, there's just a lot of stress going on these days. And just if you feel like you can't manage it, this is not for someone who is, dangerously depressed. And, that's not the majority of people out there. I mean, there are people out there that are really further spectrum of anxiety and depression. But for the overwhelming majority of our population, we're just dealing with daily stressors, and our cortisol level, we go into that fight or flight response. Mm-hmm. And when we evolved as humans, that fight or flight response protected us. We saw a saber-toothed tiger coming at us and we ran, and we had this, our cortisol level shot up. It gave us the energy to run away from that saber-toothed tiger. Mm-hmm. The problem is the stressors that we're dealing with, being cut off in traffic or getting into a fight with a loved one or having a to-do list that's so long, that fight or flight response doesn't turn off. It stays on. And now we have this high cortisol levels, and we're constantly in that fight or flight state, which is incredibly dangerous as a society. And again, why we're seeing such a rise in diseases and all of those types of issues that people are having.
That's important. When we're sort of taking all of our vitamins, right? We have our multivitamins, then you would recommend a probiotic and then possibly the Just Calm all together, right? So the
Yeah.
multivitamin is also essential in terms of helping the probiotics in terms of
Yeah.
working better, or would you say that the majority of the things that you're dealing with are sort of taken care of with the probiotic?
It's where you start. I don't know that it takes care of everything. And I mean, in a perfect world, I would love for everyone to be able to get tested which nutrients they're deficient in. So a multivitamin is great, but we don't know. Maybe you're taking too much vitamin B that's in your product, or maybe you're taking too much vitamin C or whatever it might be because you don't have a deficiency in it. But I think it's a good, safe thing to take a multivitamin just because we know the food, our soil is so depleted of nutrients. We're not getting the same nutrients that we used to. But I think it's foundational for people to be taking a spore-based probiotic. And it's important that I distinguish between spore-based, because I don't think a lot of doctors will say, oh, the probiotics, I don't know, I don't think they're really doing anything. And they're right in a lot of ways, because a lot of them really aren't doing anything. They're dying before they ever get to the intestines. But to take a spore-based probiotic, where we have studies that show that we have 100% survival of the strains that are in our product get to the intestines alive. The stomach is very acidic. It's meant to be the gastric barrier. So most probiotics, when they are swallowed, are first of all probably killed by your body temperature, but almost certainly killed by the stomach acid. So by the time they make it to the small intestine, they're dead before they ever get there. And that's what's so different about the spores that are found in Just Thrive, is they actually have the ability to get there 100% alive. And this has been studied time and time again. And again, it's why we see such profound results with the product. So I would say you would want to take a probiotic. A spore-based probiotic is foundational. And then, I definitely can't give medical advice or anything, but I can tell you what I take. And, I'm definitely a vitamin D taker, a vitamin C taker. I take CoQ10. I think that's really great for heart health. I take vitamin K27, which we have a vitamin K27 product too, that would be a whole other episode to get into, but really important for heart health and bone health. So I'm a huge fan of supplementing with different products. But again, foundationally, it's where you start. All the healthy foods you're going to eat are going to work so much better if you are taking care of your gut by taking a spore-based probiotic.
When you go to the stores and you look at the different probiotics, they always have like different numbers, like this many billion, that many billion, and it's very confusing. In your probiotics, how many is it called? CFU?
CFU, which stands for colony forming unit. I'm so glad you mentioned that, because that is one of the biggest myths out there in the probiotic space. One of the biggest myths is, that you need a high quality probiotic has 5 billion CFUs or 20 billion CFUs. Now you see some 250 billion CFUs. And there is absolutely no science behind that whatsoever. That is a pure marketing play, because having more does not make it better. It's just they're putting more in because they know so many are dying. So there is no evidence that more is better. Here we have a product that showed 30% favorable shift in the gut by taking our product, our strains, and we only have 3 billion CFUs in our product, but we know just 3 billion is making a 30% favorable shift. I don't know any probiotic out there with 500 billion CFUs that show any type of a shift, let alone a 30% favorable shift in 2 weeks. So that is really one of the biggest myths out there of probiotics, is that you need a lot of, a high quality probiotic has a high CFU count. It's really what's the quality of the strains and what kind of shift are these strains actually making to that garden in your gut. And the other big myth out there is refrigeration. That one is so funny, because I'm always so happy that doctors are talking about probiotics, and they'll say, but make sure you take one in the refrigerator. And I always laugh, because if you think about it for a second, if a probiotic needs to be in the refrigerator, it's because it's so sensitive that it can't withstand the room temperature of the store shelf. The reason a probiotic is in the refrigerator is that if it stood on the store shelf, it would die. The live bacteria would not be alive. So if you take it, what's going to happen? Your body is 98.6. I mean, it's going to die. Just the body temperature alone is a lot hotter than the room temperature of the store shelf.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a big myth. Why the myth started, or the story started, because we know a probiotic, just to be defined, has to be alive in the intestines, but it doesn't need to be alive in the refrigerator. It needs to be alive in the intestines. And the strains that are found in Just Thrive, why they're alive in the intestines is because these are strains that have this endospore shell around itself. And I don't want to get too sciencey, but that's what makes it so different, makes it very hardy and the ability to survive the gastric system. And it's not until they hit the small intestines that it takes its shell off. And that's when it goes into its live vegetative cell state. So that's why it's become so effective for people who take the product.
That's so interesting. Yeah, usually I'm like, I want all the billions. Like, I want the
I
highest
know.
number. So I didn't
I
realize
know.
that. Do you believe that there are any additional benefits for women in terms of taking Just Thrive? I do know that probiotics help with like vaginal discharge or issues like that. Do you think that there's anything specific to women that it can help with?
Oh gosh, do I ever? I mean, there are so many things. One is that your vaginal microbiome, the health of it is dictated by your gut microbiome. So, really important that you're taking care of your vaginal microbiome. What I'm most passionate about is pregnant moms. And like when you are pregnant and your child is born, that is the only time a child is inoculated with their bacteria. So this is when they're getting their lactobacillus and bifidobacterium strains. That is when they get it. That's really the only time when they are as a vaginal childbirth, close skin to skin contact with the mom, and breastfeeding and nursing. So it is so important that a mother is taking care of their microbiome when they're pregnant, because you are passing that on. Like the best gift you could give your child, and all we want as mothers is to have healthy children, is to take care of your gut microbiome, because that's what you're passing on. So I think it's super important for moms to be taking care of their gut microbiome, because you're passing it on to your child. And then of course, as moms, we're the ones, who are stressed out, running around doing all this stuff all the time. So we need to, take care of our own emotional health as well. And
Mhm.
we already know there's the big gut brain connection. But also the other thing for moms is hormone production. Most of our hormones are being produced in our gut. Like I said, those neurotransmitters that I talked about are being produced in our gut, but our hormones are being produced in our gut too. So really important when you are trying to support your hormone health. Every expert out there says you need to talk about your gut health too. So
Mhm.
really important that we're focusing on our gut health when we talk about women's health, for sure.
What was the biggest change that you noticed once you got the product to be where you thought it was best?
For me, I didn't have any digestive issues until I started taking the problem. I realized, oh, I did have digestive issues. I just didn't know it, because
Oh,
I became so much more regular. I always thought I was regular,
right.
but it's not just about how often you're going to the bathroom, but it's about how do you feel when you're done going to the bathroom. And my mom and I talk about this all the time. We're like, I can't believe we talk about bowel movements so often now, but it's like, now I feel so cleaned out, and when you're getting
Mm.
rid of those toxins, that's why people will say, I lost a few pounds. Well, of course, you're getting rid of those toxins. It's your gut that's dictating if you're one of those people that could eat a cupcake and not really gain that much weight, or if you're one of those people that just looks at a cupcake and gains, 10 pounds. So it's our gut bacteria that's dictating how we metabolize food. It's our gut bacteria that's dictating, and when you're going to the bathroom regularly, you're getting rid of those toxins and you're just supporting your brain health and all that. So I noticed a lot of differences. I've seen it with my parents and my in-laws too.
Mhm.
I look at pictures from before we started the product to now, and it's, 10 years later. I mean, they look so much better. They're healthier. It's amazing. And I think it's also like, it's like anything. Once you start on this health journey,
Mm.
you start making baby steps. I would say to everyone, start on the probiotic and start on the Just Thrive probiotic. Go slowly, go maybe take one capsule every other day. Just go slowly. And then now you're going to start feeling better, and it's going to make you want to start taking another product, maybe vitamin D, but you'll start researching more. I am really passionate, and our company is very passionate about empowering people to really take control of their health. It's good to go to a doctor and understand, do the testing, but empower yourself. That's why our website has so many blogs. We invest a lot in the research blogs
Mhm.
that we empower people to really understand their health. And, people listening to podcasts like yours is really important. And that's why I'm so grateful that you brought me on today to talk about this, because I really want people to start empowering themselves and just taking baby steps. Give yourself grace, and go slowly. But if you start doing these baby steps, you're going to be like, oh, I feel better. And then I'm going to take this supplement because this makes me feel better. You're just going to be healthier overall. And it's really exciting. It's really exciting to take control of your own health. And it's something we as a company are incredibly passionate about. And that's why we have a product coach on our team that you could call and ask questions about the particular products to learn about what would best support your health.
That's wonderful. You're right. So many of us put so much effort into our outer appearance and entertainment and things of that nature, but we don't spend enough time taking care of our bodies and the things that really matter, which is your health, because that dictates
Yep.
literally everything that happens in your life. And I did want to bring up
Mhm.
one more thing. I know that probiotics are also super important when you travel, right? If you're going to another country and you're eating their food and maybe your body is not used to that food, it's also important to take during that time. Is that correct?
Absolutely. You are absolutely right. But even if you're in this country, so many people complain about when they travel and they're out of their home element, they have trouble, going to the bathroom regularly. So really important. I'm glad you brought that up because it's really important to take that. We take it when you're traveling, especially.
Yes. And what age would you recommend a person start taking Just Thrive? Like teenagers, or would you recommend for adults or even
Yeah.
children?
Well, my passion for children comes out here because when I was a child, which was a long time ago, I knew one classmate who had an allergy from kindergarten through high school. And I went to pretty large schools. I went to pretty large high school. So one child. And nowadays, there it's an epidemic also. People, you can't go to dinner without the waiter or waitress asking you if there's any food allergies at the table. There are separate
Mhm.
allergy, peanut free tables. This is a result of our guts being just destroyed, through the world that we live in. So I think children should be on the product. I feel passionately about that because I think we know that our are being destroyed on a daily basis. And it's why we're seeing this rise in allergies and autoimmune issues and ADHD and ADD. I can't think of anybody who shouldn't be on the spore-based probiotic. I really can't. There are delivery, like our product is a capsule and you open the capsule in order to give it to a child. You could open it and mix it with a food or drink. It's tasteless, colorless, odorless, so a child wouldn't even know it's there. And even for a child, if you just do it every couple days, every third day or something, just to get those strains in there so you're constantly supporting their gut health. But arguably, I would say children are more at risk for gut health than some of the older population because the older population had this foundation of a healthier gut. Their foods weren't sprayed with Roundup. They weren't thrown antibiotics for every little thing. And
Mhm.
again, antibiotics save lives. I don't want to say that you should never be on an antibiotic. I'm just saying there was an overabuse of them for many years in our society, and now they're in our food supplies. So we just want to make sure that, use them accordingly. But it's important that children are on the product as well.
That's wonderful. This was such important information and so helpful just for myself. And I'm thinking of family members that could actually benefit from starting Just Thrive. Where
Oh.
can they find Just Thrive products and how often do they need to take them?
So the best place to find us is our website, which is justthrivehealth.com. And we have a coupon code, I believe, for your listeners of DAF for just DAF, and you'd get 15% off on the site wide, the entire site, whatever you'd want. And it's so easy. The probiotic alone is just one capsule per day with food. And again, I recommend people start slowly because if you have any gut imbalance going on, which unfortunately most people do, it might create some uncomfortable feelings, which is a good sign. That means that it's working, but I don't want anyone to be uncomfortable. So maybe you could start with a half a capsule every day, or you could do one capsule every other day. But by a week or so, you'll be fine to just do one capsule a day. So it's just one capsule a day. And you could find us at justthrivehealth.com.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Tina. Your products are definitely changing lives and changing the world. And I'm grateful that you were here to share this information with us. So you can
Yep.
visit the website, justthrivehealth.com, and use the code DAF to get 15% off of your probiotics.
Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun.
Thank you. And thank you all for watching. Bye bye.
Bye bye.